So I don't know if you all have the same problem I do, but when I see these little stools, these little footstools, decor pieces, they're useful. I just can't ever pass them up, whether they're real wood, whether they're plywood. Oh, I just don't know. There's just something about these little cuties that I always seem to be bringing them home with me. Hi guys, welcome to the channel. Yes, I am working on some small little stools. They were wood typed and I wanted to keep that wood look. So when I came across the funky junk stencils, I had a wonderful idea to make these look like they were made out of pallet wood. So yes, in today's video, I am going to try to make these still be wood, but give them character. So right now, they're just a useful piece that, yeah, it's not pretty home decor. So let's see if I can create these into some pretty home decor. So keeping that wood look, but we have some knots here that could become loose or they could get debris stuck in them. So I want to make them nice and flat. So what I'm using now is the Star Bond CA glue, and this is the brown color. So I'm going to fill these in. It's going to kind of fill it in like an epoxy. So I just start layering in using the accelerator spray to dry it in 15 seconds. And I'm going to keep building it up until it fills in that gap. Now that I have that gap filled in, it's slightly raised, I can sand it smooth. Along with sanding that area smooth, I'm going to go ahead and, since I want to leave this a natural type of look, I need to get all the dirt buildup that has been soaked into this unfinished wood, along with any of these paint drips. So I'm just taking some 220 sandpaper and getting those taken care of. So I definitely want to add a lot more character to this just plain stool. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to kind of beat it up. So at first I'm going to start off with my Japanese saw and I'm just going to start cutting grooves into this top. And I know that you'll get little shards. This is a plywood top, not a solid wood surface. But still at the end I will achieve the look that I'm going for, but it's just a process of distressing a piece. Yep, this is one of those cases you have to trust the process. So I actually am going around all the sharp edges and just giving it a little ding up here and there. Now my next step is, I have a chain. I have a metal chain, I have a hammer. I'm just going to add more distressing to this. So, plain and simply, just take the hammer on top of the metal. That's going to leave grooves in the wood. And yes, that's the look I'm going for. Seems silly, doesn't it? Can't say that plywood has much character at all. So this is actually adding some character, though you can't really see it too much right now. Here's a close-up of where I sawed. Here's a close-up of me hammering where you can see the dents. Now my next step is I want to add some numbers, some wording, and these stencils are perfect. I ordered these stencils from the Funky Junks out of Canada, and where she is in Canada, for me in Michigan, really it was less than 2 weeks to get these, and I am super excited because I want to make these stools look like they were made out of old pallet wood, and that is the ones that I ordered. Oh my gosh, I am so super excited to test these out for the first time on these little stools. So I'm going to be using some spray adhesive to attach it to the stool, that way that it doesn't shift around. Now picking out what wording you want. So this is kind of made to be not all stenciled at the same time if you don't want to. So I'm just going to be taking pieces and parts, and the irony here is, if you watch our channel enough, that my husband Chris actually works at a pallet shop. And so they're really authentic, y'all. So yeah, so now just deciding what pieces and parts to use. So I use some spray adhesive. I always do my spray adhesive over my trash can so I'm not getting sticky all over a shop. And now I'm just taking my black onyx ready to use paint from Walmart. I have it on a plate. I'm just doing the dry brush technique where there's just a little bit of paint on my paintbrush and just doing that swirling motion. This wood is really dry. It's just going to absorb it right in. And I want to make it look like it was just stamped on there, so I don't need to put a lot of effort trying to make the colors really dark by going over twice. Now before moving on, I want to make sure that I clean off my paint so I don't get paint where I don't want paint, since I sanded all the extra paint off that I didn't want. So I'm just taking a Clorox wipe, a wet wipe, wiping it off and drying it off, making sure that both sides are clean, that there's not going to be any excess paint. And so now the hard part is determining, okay, so what one do I want to do next? Because of course, one little stripe isn't enough. And I want to make sure before putting that stencil back on, I want to make sure my other paint is dry. And the nice thing about a flat paint is once it absorbs in and it's dry, it's not shiny anymore. So I could tell that it was still a little bit wet because it was shiny. So I'm just going to use my heat gun to make sure it's dry. Now I'm going to now determine what other part of that stencil I want to use. So I think I'm going to go ahead and use these little numbers. You don't have to, the fun thing about a stencil is you can take pieces and parts of what you want. You could slap the whole thing on there if you want. But yep, I'm trying to be good because this just has my heart, y'all. But I do need some assistance of some masking tape to hold this one in place because I'm just using the corner. I'm sure you could cut your stencil up, but at this moment I don't feel the need. I think I'm just going to keep it all together. That sometimes that's a little bit easier, and I know you could, but I'm just going to use some masking tape to make sure that it stays in place. And then even though I've got that spray adhesive on the back of it, I just want to make sure that I'm not blotching it and it's not raising up. I could leave this as is, but I have some sides that I could work with. The hard part is not overdoing, and it is so much fun to do these stencils that, okay, I'm just going to do the little up arrow. I thought this will be perfect for each side of this, so a little bit of spray adhesive, just hold it in place. And I'm just centering the arrow with the V part of how the legs were cut, and I'm going to do this on both sides. Now I'm going to flip it around and add a little bit more. I'm trying not to go crazy, but a lot of times palette wood is stamped. So I'm just going to take these little pieces and parts on the bottom here just to give it I just love random numbers that generally don't mean anything. So it's nice to have a stencil instead of cricketing it out myself. Now that I have those all on, I don't want my paint to be raised. Like I said, I want it to feel like this is made out of pallet wood. You don't feel that stamping when they stamp on it. So I'm just taking some 220 sandpaper and making sure that my lettering is nice and smooth and one with the wood. So now we need to get this aged again. So to make it look like that weather palette wood, I'm using the Weathered Oak Minwax stain. Getting all the stain on, now I'm going to go back through and wipe off any of the excess. And every wood is going to take stain differently. So this plywood on the top really grabbed that gray, and then on the sides it didn't grab as much gray. It's just how it goes. But I wanted to make sure that I did every pieces a part of this little stool, not just the top. And then I let my stain dry completely overnight before working on my next step. So now it just kind of looks kind of, So now I'm going in with Jolie's black wax, and all that time I spent with that Japanese saw and hammering and getting some distressing. I need that distressing to pop. The stain just did not do exactly what I was looking for. You can see it a little bit more, but I'm going to go ahead and get into these cracks with this black wax, and it's really going to start making them pop. Now I'm going to just stop. Sometimes you just have to deal with how it turns out, and the wood's going to tell me how the wood, like I said, this was a plywood top, not a solid wood piece. So it took a little bit differently, and I was fine with it. I got that black wax to go in the cracks. It's really showing all that distressing. Now I'm going to seal this all in with a coat of polycrylic, and I really do love how this looks like it has been made from old pallet wood that has been weathered. So after my polycrylic is dry, I'm going to go over with some fine grit steel wool, the 401, to make sure that everything's nice and smooth. And my final step will be to put a coat of natural wax. Even though it looks like it's aged and it's going to be rough, I want the piece actually to be nice and smooth. And then in case you didn't think there was any transformation, here's the before, and then here is the after. So let's get on to that next one. So now if you are familiar with woods, this one is still a plywood. You can see the layers of wood on the side that it's made, but it has a completely different top. It is a harder wood top. So yes, all woods are not the same. All plywoods are not the same. All pallet wood is not the same. But I am going to go ahead, even though this does not have paint stains or anything, it has those natural oils and the air, dirt, and debris. I want to make sure that when I go to, just like painting, I need to prep my surface. So same thing, I'm going to get all that sanded off just with some 220 grit. And I'm going to do that same technique. I want these to look like aged and used and abused pallet wood, so that Japanese saw, and even as I'm using the Japanese saw, I can tell that I have to put a lot more pressure on this harder wood. Now that I have it all beat up, I just want to make sure that there's no really sharp points from where the plywood starts to split on the side, even just from running the Japanese saw. So I'm just taking that same 220 sandpaper and just making sure that everything is smoothed down. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and use the other sheet of pallet wood stencil. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm loving on these stencils. So same thing, spray adhesive on the back of it, and then attach it, and then just deciding where I want all the lettering, all the wording, all the numbering to go. Not using the tape to attach it, I'm just using a little bit of masking tape in case I just start going crazy with my stencil brush and I have paint on it. So I'm just trying to protect myself. So here is my paint. I just have it on a little plate, and then I just try to get most of the paint off my brush. Just a little bit is enough, especially on this really dry wood. The hardest part of using these stencils is deciding how you want it to look. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a mirror kind of going on here because I want to. Some people do use these little stools not only to like lift themselves up to grab something out of a cupboard or to sit on to put their shoes on. Sometimes people use them for plant stands or they like to put decor on them. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to fill in all that center section and it be covered up. So that is why I'm kind of staying off to the sides. Okay, so this one doesn't have as much space as the other one to put a lot of the stenciling on, but I found a spot. I found a spot. So yes, this one, the way that I have to really hold it to get it to stay down. These are nice, thick stencils. I am not sponsored, you all. I just saw these on a Pinterest and when I was getting inspiration, and I'm like, oh, she's got a website I can order from. So, yep, the next thing you know, here I am using these wonderful stencils. And I do like how thick they are. As I'm bending it, I don't feel like it's going to crack by any means. So after sanding the paint, making sure that it was nice and smooth and one with the wood, I'm using that same weather oaked stain. And yes, it looks really gray at first, but it's a stain. You gotta let it do what it's going to do and soaked in. A lot of times palette wood, y'all, is gray. It has been out in the weather. So yeah, I am absolutely loving how these are turning out. I probably say that about every project, but don't we love what we do? I definitely do. The same thing, I let that stain completely dry overnight, and you can see the way that this plywood took wasn't the way the other plywood took. It's just a difference in the type of wood that was used. So, but the same, I want all that distressing that I put on to pop more, so just a little bit more of that Jolie's black wax. On the top of this, I did a few swipes with the Japanese saw, so I'm going over the top of it and making sure that I'm getting all those little deep grooves that I put in. It'll be that same process of after I get the wax on, I seal it in with polycrylic, and then after the polycrylic's dry, we're going to sand this nice and smooth, even though it's going to look rough. It's going to be smooth to the touch, and then finish it up with a coat of natural wax. Do you think this little guy's been used for a plant stand? So yeah, so after getting it all cleaned up, just know that I pre-cleaned all these. They were, they were used. They were dirty. So Dawn dish soap, hot water is all they need, and then let them dry before sanding. So now, yes, I'm just going to see what's underneath here, and I'm like, oh my heart, this wood grain. I absolutely love it. So this is going to be a little bit different process. This is just a little guy, but it hit my heart with all that graining going on. So I'm actually not going to be, there's no need to add any character to this wood because it already has a ton of character. For this one, I actually ordered these. These are just like a crockery number, some extra numbers. I'll link it all down below if you all are interested. So I'm just going to add a little number right to the side just because I really want to use the stencils. Yeah, it's hard. So yeah, so that's all I'm doing is just the simple number 9.0 on this little corner. Since I was in the motion of doing all three of these the same, I did put some of the weathered oak stain on this, even though I don't think it changed it really at all. I probably should have just went with just the natural wax, but you know, you're in a process, you're doing a grouping of three. It is what it is. You just keep on working and doing what you're doing. Weather stain did actually darken up that top, then now I can't hardly really see my number through all that beautiful graining, so I'm just going to give it a little bit of age, not that it's hitting any grooves, but it's just going to give it a little bit of antiquing of I've been touched on my sides just a little bit, and I'm only doing this on these top sides. Oh my gosh, I hope that you guys totally love those. Yeah, the stain just wasn't enough, but that black wax came to the rescue to get in all those little crevices. Oh my goodness, I absolutely love them. So I know that they're not everybody's taste, making stuff out of recycled wood or make stuff look like recycled wood, but it definitely has that industrial vibe going on. But it fits into everything. It fits into farmhouse and cottagecore, and even probably some boho. So let me know down in the comments below, have I inspired you to look at secondhand finds in a new way? And if these are projects you're like, okay, it was entertaining, but I'm not going to make that, or are you curious and would like to try the staining and the stenciling? Now that is a Canadian company, so the pricing is a little bit different, the shipping time's a little bit different, but I will say for me, I picked the two that I knew that I would definitely, or the three, excuse me, the three that I would definitely use all the time. So I made it worth my trip, and that is my little kitty Peach, who would like to be part of the closing today. So thanks again for watching, guys, and as always, if you're part of our YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you're new and you're checking out this content for the first time and you like secondhand makeovers and going along with me and finding and me sharing my thrifted finds with you all, hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know we've uploaded a new video, and we will see you next time, guys, and you can see what we're up to. Bye. Do you want to see where he jumped to? To my cabinet that I have not decorated yet. He likes to look at himself in mirrors. Have you ever met a cat that likes to look at himself in a mirror? Wait, he'll come back. He'll come back. He loves to look at himself in a mirror, y'all. It's hilarious. He's too cute.